Hello again, everyone, and welcome to round number 9 of the Coleslaw Cup, and it's taking place at the infamous Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari here in Imola, for which is what also for what is also a sprint race weekend format this week. Now, 4.9-kilometer circuit features 19 corners, 9 of which to the right and 10 to the left. Only one DRS zone, which makes up for most of the overtaking opportunities. Now, drivers will need to be especially on their game mentally tonight to avoid track limits, penalties, collisions with other drivers, and especially their pit windows with the ridiculously long pit lane time. So, this is how it's going to work. We're going to jump into a one-shot qualifying session, which, by the way, as it would be in real life this weekend, wet conditions for one shot. Now, anyone that's racing in an F2 league most likely does one shot, so those that do that will be used to this. Then we're going to have an 11-lap sprint race to determine the starting grid for the 32-lap Grand Prix week, which, say what you want about sprint races, whether you like them or don't like them, they do oftentimes create excitement, which is, after all, the whole part. But in real life, let's go ahead and say the majority of people are against them. But here in the F1 game, I tell you what, this might be a call to use this more often tonight, perhaps. Hotspot on the call, as always. I've been locked in a car for 8 hours on my way back from Pennsylvania. I am fired up, ready to go, ready to kick ass and chew bubblegum, and I'm all out of gum. 17 seconds to go until we begin our qualifying laps here. Remember, one shot, you get one opportunity. Wait, what does the Eminem line go like? One shot, one opportunity to seize everything you ever wanted, one moment. Would you capture or just let it slip? Well, speaking of let it slip, it's a rainy qualifying session here in Imola, and we are on board with Knuckles as he heads now out of Rivazza corner. Now, as you can see, we are in the intermediate type weather here. Time starting now. Knuckles on his way through turn 1 already down towards Tamburello. This is a very tricky turn 1 to navigate here. You definitely don't want to be side by side through said corners. You can see Knuckles really having to feather the throttle to get through it cleanly out of Tamburello down towards Villeneuve. One of the most difficult corners, I'd say, in the game, is you really have to take this corner differently each time you approach it. Well, after you exit that, you go into Tosa now. Pretty simple, just got to watch out for the oversteer on exit, perhaps, which Knuckles is doing his best to very not be affected by. Now going in towards Pirotella from 7th gear down to about maybe 4th, 5th or 4th, probably 5th in the dry conditions, 4th in the wet, it seems. Down the hill now towards Aqua Minerale. This is tough. The water really does collect on the boards and the curbs there, so it's really, really crucial that you take that section of track cleanly, as Knuckles has done, albeit it's a little slow. Now up into the Alta chicane here, from 8th down to about 2nd, roughly, at least in the dry. Exit has the potential of oversteer, nothing this time for Knuckles. At the top, it seems like Lanty and Scornsy, perhaps, very close indeed for pole. Down into Rivazza now, into about 2nd or 3rd gear. I think he's taken it maybe a little bit wide. Typically, you want to take more of that inside curve, but he's done okay. At the very least, he's kept it clean, and that's very important. However, it is NFS light work that does take pole position, 125, 144. So, good for him. However, he now has to defend that title of pole position for 11 laps coming up in the sprint race. Which, very, very excited to see how this plays out. I actually have not even used sprint format in game so far. Lightwork on pole, Lancy 2nd, Scornsy 3rd, Ryan Rod's 4th. A-Dub, Scornsy, Dace, Jacko, KB, and Dutchman round out the top 10. Smith Pell 11th, Slayer as 12th. 13th, Tweezer 14th, Knuckles 15th, Scavney 16th, Nicky 64. And everyone behind him, including Mopile Cowboy, Shariah, VTech, and Ray Ray, did not get a chance to complete a timed lap, so it is going to be Lightwork on pole for the sprint race. Lancy in 2nd, Scornsy in 3rd, and he's got Ryan Rods next to him in 4th. Crucially, Elma Jacko, currently the championship leader, back in 8th. He's got a mountain to climb in this sprint race. Let's see what he can do. And so crucially as well, for this sprint race, mind you, it's only 11 laps long. You will not need to pit during this race, considering the soft tires will last you about 11 laps. So no sense pitting unless you get done in for wing damage, which hopefully that doesn't happen too much of, really. I'm hoping for a clean sprint race here in order to determine the grid. You can see it is a very cloudy day here in Imola. So a couple little neat tidbits of the Autodromo Enzo e Dino Ferrari, the circuit named after Ferrari late founder Enzo and his son Dino, who died at the age of 24. The track originally had no chicanes at all, and it held its first Grand Prix in 1980, which was won by Nelson Piquet, and the track is infamous for the 1994 Grand Prix, which claimed the lives of Roland Ratzenberger and three-time world champion Ayrton Senna in the same weekend. And even on top of that, Rubens Barrichello had a very, very serious incident the day before, which really raised safety concerns throughout F1. Ayrton Senna really is like the Dale Earnhardt Sr., perhaps, of F1. It was really his death that led to so many safety improvements, but unfortunately a little too late to save the life of the champion. That's why this track, as fun as it may be, does have its share of dark history involved. Well, dark history aside, hopefully now it can create some nice history, as it looks like, oh, we're going to have a formation lap. That part I didn't expect. Apparently, we're going on formation lap here. Lightwork does have pole position, so he'll be leading us off. Interestingly enough, he has chosen the medium tire. All but one have chosen the mediums. Scavney, the only driver on said medium tires. That is a little bold. I would have expected everybody to take the softs. I don't know, maybe just the tire, the limits of the amounts per the weekend. I'm not quite sure. I would have absolutely expected every driver to be on the soft tires. I guess, well, I guess I'm quite surprised, to be completely honest. But, crucially now, so Lightwork on pole, Lancey second, Scornsy third. So, you do have quite the run into the Tamburello chicane, but will Scornsy have enough room to be able to make overtakes happen and actually get in the position to be on pole? And really quick, while we have a moment, let's look at the Drivers' and Constructors' Championship. So, exiting France, Jacko in the lead, 183 to 129 over Scornsy, Dusty Lusky in third at 109. Those are the only drivers relatively close. In the Constructors' Championship, remember, it was very, very close between Ferrari and then AlphaTauri. And then AlphaTauri last week, everything suddenly, I believe, went wrong for them. As, well, Dace did win the race. A-Dub was very much on his way to winning, I believe, and then something happened with him. But currently, they trail Ferrari at the top of the table, 211 to 196. So, still definitely within reach with about half the season remaining. So, I tell you what, I'm not too sure, unless Jacko has an unbelievable downward spiral starting this week. I'm not entirely sure Scornsy's going to be able to really have too much of a chance of catching up, at least within these next couple of rounds. However, that Constructor's title all up for grabs, and it's going to start here in the sprint race. Now, really, I have no idea what to make of this. I don't know if the drivers are going to take it conservatively. I don't know if they're going to take it gutsy off the line and try to really make up spots. It really is, truthfully, as we have multiple drivers being DSQ'd here for doing something wrong, that part's for sure, as the grid forming up here on the pit straight. Here we are then, lights turning on here at Imola. We have 4 and then 5, and so it is then lights out, and away we go then for the sprint race. Now, albeit down to the inside, Lancey does have the better grid slot, but he's not gotten a good start whatsoever. Scornsy right there down to the inside. I believe he was 3 abreast there a second with the 2 Aston Martins. He's still down to the inside. That's Ryan Rods. He's made his way up to second. Scornsy locked there on the inside of the circuit. Oh, AlphaTauri around towards the back. That's Dace. That's gone off then, and it looks like that might be a big collision then. I'm not quite sure, but for now, Lancey has not had himself a very good start. He's now being overtaken by Ryan Rods, that being for the third spot. Now he's dropped down all the way down to 5th. Very not good start then for the Williams driver, who now has to defend the Mercedes of Dusty Lusky around the outside, and plus the AlphaTauri behind them of A-Dub. But it is Lightwork who has taken the lead and kept it off the start. Scornsy's made his way up to second. Now, you would have thought that the Williams would have had somewhat of an advantage being towards the inside of the grid on the start, but that's just not the case. He's not had a good start to back up his good grid position, and so what that's done, that's put him in a hole immediately, as Scornsy immediately went around the left side, and now Lancey, who I believe was in a little bit of a panic, has fallen down to 5th, and that, I believe, has been one of the biggest position changes on track, minus Mopow Cowboy. He's up 5 as well as Shariah. Down 11, however, is Dace, and Smith Pell in his own right down 9. So it looks like if you're anywhere within the top 10, you've had a pretty good start, minus that of Lancey. If you're outside of the top 10, Only a couple of you have really done well, that being Mopower, Shariah, and Scavney. Everyone else has really not had a good time of it. The two Ferraris side by side then, this slightly yellower than normal Ferraris making their way through the Tamburello chicane, as once again, I believe they're going to invert positions. I think they've done that last week at France as well. Which, I mean, you can't blame it. Majacko, I think, is definitely the faster driver, no offense to KBO7. We definitely do know that Jacko has some pace to him, and a lot of the time it is more consistent than many of the other drivers on the grid. So, quite smart then from the Ferrari team to actually invert those two drivers. Towards the back, it looks like Nicky64 and Tweezer battling it out then for the 14th spot. And we do have a yellow flag off towards the back. It is Smith Pell who has gone around, and it looks like, has he kept the car at least in one piece? Well, I can't quite tell you, but it's still going, so I guess that's a good sign then. Nicky64, oh, the Williams of Tweezer's gone quite wide in front of him, and I believe he might have a go at the overtake this time by. DRS not in play just yet. However, when it does, I believe we will be seeing a fair amount of overtaking here, as El Majacko now within 0.3 of A-Dub ahead. Meanwhile, at the top of the grid, Scornsy, he's within 0.6 of Lightwork in first place. Scornsy setting the fastest lap as well, 1:17.997, and he'll be having DRS once they come around one more time. Now, crucially, Lightwork hasn't used much of his battery. He's at 80%, as Scornsy's down to 43%. So Scornsy having to be a little bit more aggressive with his energy deployment, whereas Lightwork hasn't really had to use it, and he'll be able to defend when he needs to. So Scornsy closing down now, and even then, I believe, honestly, Scornsy, assuming that he'll have a good start come the actual Grand Prix, he might have somewhat of an advantage starting on the right-hand side of the grid come the actual Grand Prix if he finishes in second place. El Majacko reeling in the AlphaTauri of A-Dub ahead of him, and that's going into now, that's Piratella. Hard to tell from the aerial view. Down towards Aqua Minerale. Now, this is a very tricky corner, as we've mentioned before. Really is. Whoever makes the least amount of mistakes will come out on top so far. Will come out on top today, and that is really going to be the name of the game. El Majacko reeling in. AlphaTauri still. And it looks like, I tell you what, A-Dub, despite being under pressure, is holding the car quite nicely. And now with DRS in play, coming out of Rivazza, Scornsy will have that ability to perhaps get around Lightwork here. Who Lightwork so far using good pace, and mind you, he still has battery as well, 83%, where Scornsy, at this moment in time, solely relying on DRS to catch up to the Aston Martin ahead of him. And I'm not necessarily sure if that's a good idea or not, but he does know that, well, at the very least, he's got Lightwork on the ropes if he needs to. It looks like Majacko was not able to catch up to A-Dub during the DRS. It looks like Knuckles and Tweezer battling it out there towards the back. 0.2 of a second between Scavney and Slayerized here, and it looks like Scavney up 4 spots since the start. Oh, and look at that. That was not a very good corner there at all from Slayerized. That may have opened the door for Scavney, and I believe Scavney wanted that left side of the circuit, but Slayerized did kind of fall out of the way, and that did prevent the Red Bull from making the overtake. Here's El Majacko as they head through Piratella now, down the hill towards Aqua Minerale. He was within about 1/10 of A-Dub just a moment ago, but he's not been able to hold on to that as TDV Dutchman in the Red Bull. 3-second penalty for multiple warnings, and that's not good whatsoever. That'll drop him at least 2 or 3 positions then, nearly halfway through the sprint race already. So the Haas of Scornsy's going to have DRS right here as they exit Rivazza corner now. Does he choose to use the battery? Yes, he does. He's, I think, getting into the DRS zone, perhaps he's trying to use it. Interesting tactic to not use it during it. And look at this, the Ferrari of KBO7 has actually been able to get around his teammate of El Majacko, and now they're going to battle it out once more. And I tell you what, that has not helped anyone in that situation. Both drivers there being hindered by the battling between their own teammates, as Majacko, rightly, I think, could have been in position there to overtake A-Dub, unless he's gotten a poor exit out of Rivazza. KBO7 was able to take the position there temporarily, and then he, one more time, had to kind of give it up as, TDV Dutchman's, he's had himself a bit of an off then, and he's lost the front wing as well, and that is coming out of the Villeneuve chicane. Yellow flag in Sector 2, and I tell you what, he's going to have kind of a tough time getting back to the pits in a 10-second penalty for exceeding track limits. Now, that isn't his fault, naturally, as he's just trying to stay out of the way of the circuit, but that's not helped him any much whatsoever, to be honest. And El Majacko once more, he's now within 1/10 of A-Dub ahead of him, and he's got his teammate of KBO7 in behind as well. Looks like Nicky64, as he perhaps had an off then. Well, he's been overtaken by VTech, and that's on the straight going towards Alta Chicane, which is quite an odd place to have an overtake happen then. Dace 3-second penalty for multiple warnings, not good for him. Now here's El Majacco. Can he perhaps find a move around A-Dub? Gonna look down to the inside, and yeah, I believe he's got that one. I don't want to say easily, but he's definitely done that position. And can KBO7 strike back as well? Do both the Ferraris overtake the AlphaTauri? It's a full Italian battle here, and yes, both Ferraris able to overtake the AlphaTauri of A-Dub. A beautiful play then from the Scuderia. That was nice. Yellow flag then towards the back. That is TDV Dutchman retiring in the pits. Unfortunate for him, as Scornsy still trying his best to reel in the Aston Martin of Lightwork, who, it has to be said, since getting off the line, has had this one quite easily. Has not really had much defending to do then for, to the Haas behind him. Now can A-Dub perhaps find a way to strike back at the Ferraris here and overtake KBO7? I don't think he's going to be able to do that until they get to DRS. They're about even on battery. I'd say it's about 35 to 32. Yeah, that's exactly. So it looks like that one's going to come down to pure pace. Now here's Scornsy exiting Rivazzo once more with the Haas. Will he be able to find anything on the Aston Martin ahead of him? And look at the Aston Martin. He's not used any of his battery. 70%. He's barely touched it. Now Scornsy's down to 33, but he's not even using it. You can see, really, all he's trying to do is keep out of DRS range on the Aston Martin that's behind him of GSR Ryan Rods, which is a smart choice there by Scornsy, but I think he's going to have to be a little bit more aggressive. Looks like someone just had an off then. Oh, and it's Nicky64, and that's coming out of Rivazzo. Not good for him, as he is right then in the middle of the track. The tires freshly caked in gravel as he gets back up and going. Smith-Pell getting around Tweezer then. Glad I was able to catch on to that. A-Dub, I think, was about to have a move then. But now, mind you, Scavney has peeked his head into this picture as well. The only driver that started on the soft compound tires, which I thought was going to be a good decision. And he's up 6 positions as well. So it seems like perhaps the softs on the start was a good choice then from the Red Bull driver. The only one on the grid to make that decision. And so now that perhaps puts A-Dub in a little bit of hot water here. Does A-Dub have an ability to, at the very least, keep up with the Ferraris ahead of him, which, by the way, that's an 0.8 of a second gap. A-Dub's not really going to have an opportunity to overtake the 2 Ferraris here. He's really going to have to defend now the Red Bull behind him. And mind you, A-Dub has lost 3 positions since the beginning of the Grand Prix. DRS on the way for the Red Bull of Scavney. Does he perhaps have anything for the AlphaTauri ahead? Ray 3-second time penalty, multiple warnings. I tell you what, that's quite an odd place to get it as well. No, that's going through Rivazzo. I thought it was the other McLaren then of Slayer Eyes, I was about to say. As he cut too much of the track then, and then has gone off way to the inside. That wasn't the case. It was his teammate going through Rivazzo then, which that is not the easiest place to exceed track limits, but it is definitely possible. So meanwhile, Lancey then, who did start second, down 3 spots all the way to 5th, and he has not had an easy go of it so far. He has been overtaken then by Dusty, and albeit he's put some gap between himself and the Ferraris behind, but he has done not much then at all to actually improve upon his position, as it looks like now Nicky64 has had another spill, and that being out of Tamburello then. Scornsy still within a couple of tenths here of light work ahead. Now, once again, this was a problem with Scornsy that we saw at France. He wasn't necessarily aggressive enough to make his moves count when he had them. But let's see if Scavney actually, speaking of aggression, he's gotten around A-Dub, and that's going into Rivazzo. That was a brilliant maneuver then. Quite an unexpected one, to say the least. I was not going to have DRS. Naturally, he was ahead at that point in time. Here's Lancey now, around the right-hand side of Dusty Lusky, this being for the 4th spot, as they head into Tamburello Chicane, and Lancey definitely had to go around the outside, but knew that he wasn't going to make the corner. He had to back off to let Dusty Lusky round back through, which that was the smart decision then by the Williams driver. And now Scornsy outside of a 2nd on light work ahead. Meanwhile, championship leader El Majacco, he's back up to 6th. Now he started 8th. And he's done okay to rebound here. Mind you, he's had A-Dub fall off a little bit, and he's had another driver in that process as well, and I believe VTech has just had a spin then, and yes, he has. That then going out of Tamburello, as looks like Mopao Cowboy and Slayer Eyes were just having a quick battle then, to which Mopao Cowboy came out victorious. Lancey now to the back of Dusty Lusky. Now, he almost had this overtake last lap. Let's see if he can have any sort of a go at the Mercedes this time by. And I tell you what, I think he's gotten a much better go through Alta Chicane then over the Mercedes. He's gotten right close. I tell you what, he's not been able to find anything so far. Light work, fastest lap, 1:17.914. You can see he has exceeded 1 second gap over Scornsy. Now, DRS in favor here for Lancey, plus used the battery just slightly. He's going to go down to the inside on the Mercedes of Dusty Lusky, and I think, honestly, he's going to have that position quite easily, but even before they go into Tamburello Chicane, and there's not much Dusty can do, but kind of just let that position go by and hope that he'll get another opportunity within this next lap and a half. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, it looks like Shiraya and Dace were side by side there for a moment. Dace on that inside. Wow, Shiraya nearly, well, he locked up on the brakes then going into the corner. It looks like Scavney and A-Dub battling it out once more, as Scavney, I believe, has just gone around A-Dub then. So much action here. That was an interesting then overtake by Shiraya. Got overtaken by Dace. It looked like Shiraya was going to miss his braking zone there. Did everything he could to lock it up, to not plow into the left rear tire then of the AlphaTauri, and that one, thankfully, he did, and that would have been very catastrophic then for the both of them. Now here's A-Dub. This has been the battle to watch so far today. Has been A-Dub. Really, he's been involved in a few of them. He was in that battle with El Majaco and the two Ferraris earlier on, and now he's in the battle to retake a position from Scavney ahead. Now, of the drivers currently on track, he has not done all that well. He's lost 4 positions. Dace has lost 5. Smith-Pell has lost 6. TW Dutchman naturally has lost 10th since the initial start. If you have a yellow flag, that's VTEC who's gone off then. Of the drivers on track, currently both Scavney and Mopower Cowboy have had the best go of things, up 7 positions respectively for the both of them as we enter the final lap of the Grand Prix. Now, Dusty Lusky, I think, had a look then at Lancey heading into the Tamburello Chicane, but wasn't able to make anything happen. And now I believe, really, that is going to be his last good overtaking opportunity on the track, unless perhaps Lancey makes a mistake, say, going through Aqua Minerale, say, coming out of Alta Chicane. I tell you what, has Shiraya gone around there? Yes, he has. Well, he's kept the car in one piece, thankfully, but he's lost quite a few positions then. Dusty Lusky looking for it. Get back to Lancey here as they now head through Aqua Minerale. Who gets the better go of the corner? Oh, and it looks like Lancey's actually put on another 10th there over the Mercedes. Very nicely done then, but meanwhile, coming through Rivazza now, out of the final corner he goes. NFS Lightwork has led from start to finish, and I believe he does have fastest lap as well. So it is NFS Lightwork taking the win, Scornsy second, Ryan Rod's in third. So that will be your top 3 for the start of the Grand Prix. Now, Lightwork, to this moment in time, has a Grand Slam going. He's led every single lap of the sprint race. He's got the fastest lap of the sprint race. He qualified on pole as well. Could you believe if you pulled off a Grand Slam considering both sprint race and regular Grand Prix? That would be quite the sight to behold then. But I will say, Scornsy now at a much better starting position. I know it's only second to third, but really that advantage of being on the right side of the grid come the Grand Prix, that one's going to be mega for the Haas driver. So after the sprint race then in Imola, wow, it took me a second there. NFS Lightwork on pole, Scornsy second, Ryan Rod's third, Lancey in fourth. It'll be Dusty Lusky fifth, Majaco sixth, KB07 seventh, 8th Scavney, 9th A-Dub, 10th Mopower Cowboy, 11th Slayer Rise, 12th Dace, 13th Shiraya, 14th is Ray Ray. 15th then belongs to Knuckles, 16th Smith Pell, 17th Naked 64, 18th VTech, 19th Tweezer, and rounding out the field P20 is TDB Dutchman. So, big story then, Lancey losing out, A-Dub losing out massively then, Scornsy benefiting, he's up to second. Lightwork so far has been absolutely flawless. Elma Jacko, he's done all right himself. He started 8th in the sprint race, he's now up to 6th. That is going to be very beneficial to him come the Grand Prix. So, 30 seconds to go then before the session starts here for the Coleslaw Cup. Round number 9 then here at the Autodromo Enzo E. Dino Ferrari here in Imola. Cloudy day yet again, as it was for the sprint technically on Saturday, and for the qualifying session, which was rainy on the Friday. So, 10 seconds to go here before I believe we'll have the formation lap underway. We definitely did for the last race. It'll be interesting to see if that holds up for both of them. I think it would. I don't see why the setting would suddenly change back and forth as the drivers lined up on the grid then. Yet we will be having formation lap as NFS Lightwork pulls it off the line then. So, crucially, so far, Lightwork has the fastest lap of both the sprint race, has led every lap of the sprint race, has qualified on pole as well. So now all he needs to do is lead every lap from here on out, have the fastest lap of this one, and he'll have himself a sprint race weekend Grand Slam. That is absolutely unprecedented. But more importantly, let's look at tire strategy here. So we see a couple drivers on the softs. Now, as we mentioned before, the softs will go between 11 and 14 laps long. The mediums will last to between 8 and 14, and the hards anywhere. Sorry, I was actually reading the F2 tire lives. Softs 11 to 14, medium 14 to 18, hard 20 to 23 laps. So it would appear that it is the strategy tonight really loaded with crucial decision-making. Now, the default strategy says to box for hards around lap 12, but knowing a lot of the drivers don't necessarily enjoy the feel of the hards, look for softs and mediums to go beyond the recommended tire age, or perhaps even for a two-stopper. It's going to depend on if the safety cars come out or not. So, we have so far then Scornsy in second place. I'm really going to be interested to see what happens with him off the start. Mind you, Scornsy, so far this season, has been, I don't want to say reluctant at taking the opportunities when he's been given them. However, we saw he could have probably had an overtake on Lightwork a couple times in the last race, the sprint race, and he just couldn't take them. I don't know what it was, just in the spirit of being careful, perhaps, and not ruining the good grid position. That's definitely the case. But mind you, drivers like A-Dub here and Lancey as well, they're going to definitely have to be more aggressive. Dace as well, considering that the tight Constructors' Championship battle that they are in with Ferrari, only within a handful of points here. That could go a long way if perhaps Dace and A-Dub are able to get off to a good start. We have both the Ferrari teams, 6th and 7th, so it is a... what the hell is happening here? Well, Lancey's pulling through to his grid slot, and it looks like we're almost ready to go. Look at the angle! That Lightwork is across the track. It's about half a car angled toward the right. Now, Scornsy, how is he going to defend against this? I have no idea. Look at the difference. Oh, man, this is going to be super interesting here off the starting grid. So, the lights then will be turning on here momentarily. 3, 4, and then 5. And they are off. And now who gets the better start? It looks like Scornsy's gotten away okay, but Lightwork, due to being so angled off the line, it's going to be side by side, heading towards Tamburello. It looks like 3 abreast back there between Dusty Lusky, Lansky, and Ryan Rods, that being for the 3rd spot. Scornsy's actually been shuffled out here by the 2nd Aston Martin of GSR Ryan Rods, as somehow he's been shuffled all the way down to 4th. Now what has happened there with Scornsy? Not only has Ryan Rods taken him, but Dusty Lusky has as well. And now Scavany and A-Dub, two that battled very frequently during the sprint race, battling it out there temporarily. And it looks like as well, got to keep an eye on the 2 Ferrari teammates of Elma Jacko and KBO7. Both of them battled it out during the sprint race, shuffling about, going on towards the back. But somehow, the Aston Martin team have taken the top 2 spots. What has happened with Scornsy off the start then? It was side by side, heading towards Tamburello, and somehow, some way, Ryan Rods made his way through. Scornsy must have made some form of a mistake, because Dusty Lusky's worked his way up to 3rd as well. Very, very intriguing. First lap to the Grand Prix, then we have a car off towards the back. It is Knuckles in the Haas. And we do have a virtual safety car on track. Can we look and see what has happened with Knuckles? And he has lost the entirety of his front wing. Not what he needed whatsoever. But it looks like, for the most part, a lot of the field has stayed the same. Lightwork has stayed the same. Majacko stayed the same. Pretty much Jacko down to A-Dub has stayed the same. If you made up spots at all, it was only a couple. TDV Dutchman, he's actually up 5. He's the biggest mover so far in the positive direction. Everyone else, 2 or less. Dace is up 2, TDV Dutchman is up 2, Tweezer's up 2, Ryan Rod's up 1, Dusty Lusky up 2, the biggest loser in the negative direction, that being Knuckles, who has lost 5. So not really that much moving about here, as we're back underway then. Now, is Dusty Lusky going to be able to perhaps find a move around GSR Ryan Rod's? GSR Ryan Rod's, I would say, somewhat sleeping then. Oh, we got a car off towards the back. That's Ray Ray. And he's had a bit of a spin then. That's going through the Villeneuve chicane, heading towards Toza. Not what he needed whatsoever, is the Haas making his way through the pits then. Can Dusty Lusky perhaps find a way up to Ryan Rod's in second? He always had a bit of a slip then. Whole array of different tire strategies in play, and that is what you like to see. So this is what we're talking about, predicted stop strategy from about, well, I mean, the game will tell you that if you were on the soft tire at the start, that a 2-stop is mandatory. I don't necessarily know if that's true, but it's definitely not going to be easy, as it looks like Ray Ray's picked up 3 seconds for multiple warnings then. Now here's Scavney, he's within 3/10 then on A-Dub ahead. Meanwhile, Scornsy, he's within 3/10 on Dusty Lusky ahead. Dusty on the faster tires, however, no DRS just yet. You're going to have to wait until next lap to use that. So for the time being, everyone's going to stay put. Looks like Tweezer and VTech battling it out then. They were just side by side. That was heading in towards Tamburello, and VTech's come out on top there, it seems. Scavney now, he's within 2/10 on KB ahead. And this one might be interesting. Will he make the move into Toza? He's going to look down to the inside, and he's backed out of making that move. I probably could have thought he may have had a go for it then, but he's chosen to take the clean route, which you do appreciate seeing. As much as I enjoy the close racing, I'd rather see good calculated decisions rather than torpedoes. And as it turns out, Scavney has not hindered from not making that maneuver whatsoever. He's still within 2/10 then on the Ferrari ahead. As we have a yellow flag off towards the back, that's TDV Dutchman, and something's happened with him, as he is way off then, and that is going out of Piratella. That's quite an odd place to lose the car, as he perhaps made contact with someone. Not out of the question. No safety car, no BSC, that is a good sign, so probably just a little bit of a spin then. DRS will be in play now. Yellow flag once again for TDV Dutchman. Ryan Rod's then with the fastest lap, heading on to the 4th lap of the Grand Prix. It looks like, is anyone going to be able to make anything happen here? DRS train's already starting to form. It looks like KBO7, is he going to try to send it around the outside of his teammate? Now this is what we were talking about before on the first lap of the Grand Prix. We knew that the Ferrari drivers aren't afraid of battling each other, and that has really hindered KBO7 then, as Scavney looks down to the inside heading into the Villeneuve chicane, and somehow he's come away clean. But that was a close one then, as Scavney is right there onto the back of that Ferrari. He might have a go here, and more importantly, A-Dub might have a go behind him, as he's going to be looking for that left rear tire going through Piratella. Of course, I don't think he's going to have any room to make the move, and no, he chooses not to. However, let's see if he does get a better exit of the corner. Now, how well does KBO7 defend here? He's got 2 very quick drivers immediately behind him. And mind you, Dace is going to enter this battle as well. So 2 AlphaTauris, 2 Ferraris, and then a Red Bull somewhere in between. And A-Dub has not had a good go of the Alta chicane then. In fact, Dace really got onto the diffuser then of his teammate, and now is he going to lose 2 spots then, 1 to Mopowa Cowboy as well, as it looks like TDV Dutchman's gone off yet again back there. And look at that, Mopowa Cowboy down to the inside on A-Dub, going through Rivazza, and wow, that was a great maneuver then from the Alfa Romeo, and somehow he's made that one pay off. DRS in place still. Lightwork, I believe, has the fastest lap, if I read that correctly. Yes, he does. 1:18.843. El Majacco momentarily was within about a 10th of his teammate there. Chose not to make anything happen, thankfully. Very interesting dynamic taking place here within the Ferrari team. All for one for all, but I would hope that some teamwork is in play here. A-Dub, he's trying to work it back towards Mopowa Cowboy here. A-Dub's had a little bit of a disappointing day so far. Lost a plethora position. A plethora of, or just plethora? I didn't know how to use the grammar in that sentence, but we'll go along with it. He's lost quite a lot of positions in the sprint race, and then he's lost a couple already today. In fact, he's lost 2. That's not quite a lot, as I believe Dace has actually just gone around Scavney, going through Alta Chicane. In my endless rambling with no end in sight. Well, that sentence didn't make sense in itself, and that's just how stupid I am. However, Dace has actually just pulled off an amazing overtake there. And now you can start to see perhaps the soft tires whittling away here for anyone that started on them. Scornsy, he's within 2/10 on Dusty Lusky ahead, although I'm not entirely sure he's going to have any move to be made as they head towards Villeneuve now. But yeah, you can start to see the pace advantage coming into play here for the mediums. Does he have anything for him going into Toza? No, he doesn't. In fact, I don't think Scornsy's gotten a good go through Villeneuve Chicane whatsoever there. He's actually lost quite a bit of ground, at least another 3/10 back to Dusty then. So Dusty, one of the 5 drivers to start the race, 4 drivers to start the race on the soft tires. We've got CDB Dutchman off again. That's coming out of the Tamburello Chicane. It's not been his best day, that part's for sure. Way up then to the gearbox of Dusty Lusky as Scornsy. He wasn't able to make anything happen. Towards the back, it looks like Scavney wants to hunt down Dace here, but he's not really got a lot of time or room to make it. Scornsy, he's within 2/10 of Dusty Lusky now. This is the crucial thing. Well, we've got the battle between the Aston Martins ahead. That'll be interesting to see. Does Ryan Rods perhaps take away the Grand Slam opportunity for his teammate? Well, I think definitely at least Lightwork's going to be able to lead this lap, but I'm not sure about the next one. DRS in play here for the Haas of Scornsy. Let's see what he tries to do. He's going to look to the left side. That was probably the best decision he could have made heading into the chicane. He's going to get in that position, I think, I don't want to say quite easily, but you can see that Dusty Lusky is now starting to struggle on those soft tires. And all you need to do is look at the battery life there. Scornsy at 70%, Dusty Lusky down to 30. Elma Jacko, he's under pressure here from Dace. And actually, funny enough, KBO7 has overtaken his teammate then. I haven't noticed that until just now. I wonder where that move has happened. Is KBO7 suddenly ahead of El Majacco then? Naturally, Majacco will be a little bit slower considering he started on the hards. But he's held his pace quite nicely prior to this. TDB Dutchman, unfortunately, his day coming to an end here in the pits, which you don't like to see, but as a driver, it is definitely easy to get frustrated after the day that he's had so far. They still, towards the back, it looks like Scavney's not gotten a good go of Alta Chicane whatsoever. He's lost quite a bit of time then back to Dace, and now Mopower Cowboy wants into the mix here. Is he going to look for a move? He doesn't have the room at this moment in time. However, interestingly enough, this is Dace. He's going to be looking to get around El Majacco here. Majacco's going to be looking to keep the toe to his teammate of KBO7 ahead of him, who, by the way, has put about half a second then on the Ferrari of Jacko. Jacko's actually moving quite quickly here. He's going to have a move to be made. Oh my goodness, look at the pace that Majacco's pulling into the Tamburello Chicane. Goodness gracious. I mean, El Majacco looked like Usain Bolt on methamphetamine just then. That was super quick. That was ridiculous. Either KBO7 looked like he was absolutely rooted to the spot then. 327 kilometers an hour then for Jacko. I would have loved to have seen what KBO7 was doing, but Jesus, I mean, Majacco really was going for that one. But that has opened the door for Dace. Now, can Dace perhaps overtake KB? That'll be an interesting thing to see happen there. Now, here's Lancey. Is he going to be able to pressure Dusty Lusky for that 4th spot? Now, Dusty, mind you, those softs are going to be coming to the end of their tire lives here very shortly, so you have to assume that Lancey's going to be able to make his move here within these next couple of laps. Exiting Rivatsa now, both Ryan Rods, Lightwork, and Scornsy. Let's see if Lancey has any move here for the Mercedes in front of him. Right then to the gearbox, he's going to look to that left side, and yeah, I believe he's going to have that one decently easy as he makes his way towards the Tamburello Chicane. Very nicely done then from the Williams. A little bit further back, KBO7 has once again overtaken his teammate of El Majacco. This, I gotta say, very interesting here to see these teammates battle it out this endlessly. And all that is doing is really opening the door for Dace to really let himself in on this battle for position here. Because I tell you what, he's almost overtaken El Majaco. Oh, someone's gone off up ahead. It's not Dusty Lesky, no, it's actually Nicky 64. I thought it was ahead. It was actually behind. Apologies there, but that scared me a little bit. Anyways, it is Dace looking to get around both the Ferraris here. And mind you, Mopar Cowboys wanting into this mix as well. Scavney nearly had a trip down to the inside on the Alfa Romeo there, going through Piratella. That was almost incredible, but he's chosen to back out of that maneuver. It looks like yellow flag towards the back. Oh, Ray's gone off. This could be a safety car. Oh, yeah, and that's right in the middle of the track. That is rightfully a safety car there. And now, oh, Lightwork on his way in anyways. Scornsy coming in, Lancey coming in. Does Lightwork make it to the line? Yes, he does. So it looks like Lightwork, at least, will retain so far his Grand Slam. Oh, and look at this. Has El Majaco? No, Majaco has stayed out. Ah, interesting here. So if you started on the hards, naturally you're going to be working your way to the top here. That being El Majaco, that also being Shariah Coleslaw, as well as Smith Pell. So both Alpines now have made their way into the proceedings here, as well as VTEC. Lightwork comes out ahead of Scornsy. Wow, Ryan Rods. Now, naturally, this would happen considering double stacks aren't the best in any circumstance. But as you can see, Ryan Rods not only has lost the position to Scornsy, he's also lost it to Lancey and nearly Dusty as well. So, El Majaco has the lead of the Grand Prix, Shariah in second, Smith Pell in third, VTEC fourth, and Lightwork in fifth. Lightwork, the previous leader of the race, came in pit, so until the safety car ends, I will step aside. So safety car on its way in this lap. A reminder, El Majaco, Shariah, Smith Pell, and VTEC all stayed out under the safety car, as well as Tweezer for that matter, but everyone within the top four has yet to pit. Interestingly enough, Scavney back there in P14 pit for the mediums under the safety car. That's a bold strategy, but this will be the battle to watch here. Does Scornsy have anything for Lightwork ahead of him for the eventual lead of the Grand Prix? This one is going to be a very tight battle to see here. So El Majaco will be leading the field to green here shortly. Shariah in second, Smith Pell third, VTEC in fourth. Green flag back in the air. Is anybody going to be able to get a good jump here? Lightwork has already pulled out a few tenths over Scornsy then. In fact, that gap up to 7 tenths now. This means Scornsy really is trying to hustle his way back to position, but to no avail, really. And it looks like the drivers at the top have really started to pull away then from Lightwork, as that gap momentarily was over 8 tenths of a second. Everybody within the top four really started to pull away then from the previous leader of the race. Unfortunate to say that no longer is Lightwork's hopes for a dual race Grand Slam in play, but you know, that would have been unbelievable to see. Now Lightwork here, he's going to look for the move perhaps around VTEC. I think he's definitely got the opening. He's certainly got a pace advantage. However, does he have the patience to make this move in the correct spot? And by the way, as he tries to hunt down perhaps a potential overtake of the Alfa Romeo in front of him, Zokata also has the Haas of Scornsy in behind. This one is crucial here. Scornsy had a look down to the inside, going through Alta, chose better of it. Looks like KB and Tweezer battling it out then. The Ferrari was able to get around, was able to get around the Williams then. GSR Ryan Rods looking to get around the Williams here of Lancey. Does he have anything? Not at this moment in time. Dace getting around Tweezer. Does Scornsy have anything here for NFS Lightwork ahead of him? Battery in play then for the Haas. Does Lightwork start to defend? Only just 2 tenths of a second the gap. I don't think until DRS comes into play, Scornsy will have anything for that Aston Martin ahead of him unless he makes a mistake. Which, by the way, it seems like the only mistake is that he's still behind VTEC, and I think he had a look down to the inside going into Villeneuve chicane, thought better of it. Smart there from Lightwork, but he's going to have to go now as they head into Tosa, and that could perhaps open the door for Scornsy if perhaps Lightwork doesn't get a good exit here, side by side, and this is absolutely screwing over Scornsy then. He's got no ability to make a maneuver here as the two go through Piratella somehow. Lightwork hasn't gotten around VTEC then, finally does, and now here comes Scornsy looking around the left side, going into Aqua Minerale. Oh, heavy contact onto the gearbox then, and somehow that move hasn't been made, and somehow neither driver's gone off track, and it looks like Lancey's not gotten a good go through the corner. He's side by side with Ryan Rods. Oh, contact was definitely made there, and VTech has gone around. And so has Smith Pell ahead. Multiple drivers spinning around there. Both Smith Pell and VTech gone off through the Alta chicane in one form or another. Now, it looks like perhaps there was contact in one form or another, at least in VTech's case, because he was perpendicular across the track, and usually you wouldn't lose the car going into the corner like that. So, we'll have to see. Perhaps is there a steward report later on? A-Dub getting around Tweezer there. Perhaps for now, side by side, yes, he does. Nicely done. However, he's got quite the gap back to Scavney now. Oh, almost a second and a half. DRS now in play. However, right now it is still El Majacco leading the Grand Prix, Shariah Coleslaw second, Lightwork in third, Scornsy a very close fourth position, but is he going to be able to make anything happen? Let's take a look at the battery percentages. Lightwork 67%, Scornsy 44%. So it looks like at this moment in time, Lightwork will be able to defend and not take too much of a hindrance on his battery, while Scornsy will have to attack for everything it's worth, and he won't have anything left over at the end. It looks like Knuckles had perhaps an off there towards the back. He does save the car, thankfully, in his case. But now it would appear that the top five, all within DRS range on each other. This has suddenly become very interesting here. Does Shariah perhaps have a move for El Majacco for the lead of the Grand Prix as we start the 16th lap? Scornsy DRS in play for him. However, ahead, Lightwork doesn't have it. Lightwork's at a huge disadvantage here. Does Scornsy perhaps have a move to be made? He is absolutely flying into it then, trying to make it round the outside through the Tamburello chicane. Does he have it? No, he doesn't. Oh, and I tell you what, that, I'm afraid, was probably Scornsy's best opportunity for a maneuver then. Oh, he really had the line on the right side of the circuit over Lightwork. It just wasn't able to make the move happen, and I think he chose correctly as to not try to force the move to happen, because if he did, it would have been chaos, but still. That really has been the best opportunity for that Haas so far, and he has been unable to capitalize. It looks like Smith Pell, he's around towards the back, not good for him. At least, thankfully, he's kept the car in one piece, or so it seemed. Perhaps he's taken some styrofoam advertisement board with him. No, it doesn't actually appear that he has. However, now El Majacco, a second gap, back to Shariah Coleslaw. So Shariah really is in quite the pickle here, as he's got Lightwork in behind, and I don't think, well, actually, he might have it. Was he within a second at the detection zone then? Back to El Majacco, yes, he was. So, that has actually helped Shariah out massively. Interesting this. Ryan Rods within a couple of tenths on Scornsy. Scornsy within a couple of tenths then on Lightwork. Does anyone have a move to be made here? Lightwork, Scornsy, Ryan Rods, all within half a second heading into the Villeneuve Tamburello chicane, and nobody was able to make anything happen yet. And mind you, Shariah Coleslaw really hindering the progress then of the Aston Martin behind him. However much longer, and this was the same thing that was going on with VTech as well when he was in front. Any time that Lightwork spends behind Shariah Coleslaw, who, by the way, 16-lap-old hard tires, those will only go to about 23 laps. So anytime that he's spending behind these guys on the older tires, that is going to give Scornsy more opportunities. And speaking of opportunities, it was within a tenth there, heading down towards Aqua Minerale. I think he nearly had to go for that position. I tell you what, that would have been quite the move to make. And you can see Lightwork, I don't want to say getting desperate here, but you can start to see him really try to fill the mirrors of Shariah, maybe perhaps force him into a mistake, because not only is Scornsy in this battle, Ryan Rod's in on it as well. And look at Lancey's actually coming up to this as well. Really, Shariah Coleslaw has now invited about 4 or 5 other drivers into this battle for the podium. DRS open here for both Lightwork and Scornsy. Does Lightwork have anything here to get around Shariah? He's definitely going to look for it, but are they going to be side by side? And I think it's Shariah's and Lightwork's best interest to not go after that position. And no, he didn't. However, that almost resulted in Scornsy taking the position. Now here comes Lightwork down to the inside, heading towards Villeneuve then. Do they stay clean through the corner? Yes, they do. Shariah still has the position. He's now going to switch back to the outside, around the outside at Toza. This is a brilliant maneuver if he makes it happen, and he's got Scornsy now in behind as well, side by side between the Alpine and the Aston Martin ahead as they head towards Piratella, and not one of them able to find actually an advantage here. Still side by side it is. Shariah's got the inside line, at least through Piratella, and now through Aqua Minerale. Lightwork had the inside. Oh, and Shariah's gone massively wide then. Well, was he perhaps bumped out of the way then by Lightwork? That was, I don't know how much of an error that was on Shariah's part. That was, I mean, he has severely missed his braking point then, if that was the case. That was quite unexpected then from the Alpine driver. But now, Lightwork does not have DRS to the back of Jacko. Ooh, or off towards the back, and Nicky's gone off. And I believe, did he take the Alfa Romeo with him? Thought I saw another car in progress in that battle as well. Perhaps not, but this is the crucial thing here. In that period of time, does perhaps El Majacco now, I mean, Lightwork has not had DRS to the back of the Ferrari. This is going to be Scornsy's best chance to overtake that Aston Martin ahead of him. And he's going to have to do it soon because, as you notice, that gap, which was about a half a second heading into Rivazza this previous time by, is now down to about 6.5 tenths. KBO7, he's hunting down Shariah Coleslaw here for the 7th spot. Shariah Coleslaw, despite that little hiccup there, or perhaps incident that he's had, we're not quite sure, he's managed to get the car back up and going at the very least, and at least has put himself back into competition here, albeit he's down in 7th, but he's got Dusty Lusky not far behind. And now here comes NFS Lightwork, 0.2 of a second behind Majacco for the lead of the Grand Prix, and Scornsy only 3.5 tenths behind him. And wow, he's gotten a massive bump then from Ryan Rods, and Ryan Rods down to the inside. He's taking that position from the Haas. Wow, and I don't know if that was a bump and run there from Ryan Rods, but he got really then quite close to Scornsy. I mean, that was really close then. You could see Scornsy failed to get back on the throttle, at least with enough bite through that corner. Majacco way down on the inside of the circuit. Is Ryan Rods going to try to shoot the gap here? Oh no, I thought he was going to, but he chose not to, and Lightwork takes the lead of the Grand Prix. I tell you what, I thought Ryan Rods was going to have himself a go then. That would have been absolutely classic if he did. A battle between the two championship contenders here, Majacco and Scornsy, within a couple of tenths on each other. Scornsy to that right rear tire then of Majacco. He's going to look for it around the outside perhaps of Toza. Will he get better traction on exit? No, it doesn't seem like he does. And mind you, Lancey's in this battle as well now in that Williams. So Scornsy down to 4th. In that last lap, we are, I believe, we're not at 10 laps to go just yet. Here Scornsy is really going to have to fight for it around Majacco now. Can we look and see who's up what position? So Shariah's up 5. Lancey's only down 1. Oh, big bump then to the gearbox then of Majacco and Scornsy, I believe. Don't get me wrong, I'm not seeing any damage necessarily on the Haas of Scornsy. However, bodywork has just gone flying, and my money is that it's come off the Haas, as it was definitely a piece of carbon fiber that has detached itself from one of the cars in this battle. At the moment, we're not seeing any visual damage on the Haas of Scornsy, as Dusty Lusky and Lancey side by side then towards the back. Dusty was, I think, able to keep that position only just. But I think Scornsy, he's definitely run clean into the back of Jacko then. He's going to... Wow, I mean, look at the defending that Jacko's doing. I tell you what, Jacko, despite being on much older tires than that of Scornsy, he's really still got so much pace in that Ferrari. As around the outside looks Scornsy, he's going to have it this time. No, he's actually gone quite off track then over the boards on exit of the corner somehow. El Majacco has once again made sure that he wasn't able to take that position. Has someone just gone off back there? No, I thought my eyes have perhaps deceived me. Scavney, though, well, someone did eventually go off back there, and it was Knuckles, who has also lost the entirety of his front wing, and we do have a virtual safety car on track for said debris that has been left by the Haas. So, Lightwork, Ryan Rods at the top. Majacco behind in 3rd. Incredibly enough, Majacco still hasn't pit. He's on 20-lap-old hard tires. The game says the hard tires will only last you between 20 and 23 laps. So does El Majacco come in here relatively shortly? I think, honestly, as Slayer Eye is picking up a drive-through penalty for speeding into the virtual safety car. As look at this, Dusty Lusky getting around Scornsy now. Scornsy's been caught sleeping, as well as Elma Jacko, and Dusty Lusky has come away with a huge double overtake then to put himself into the podium places. And now Lancey, I believe, has just been overtaken then by the Ferrari of KBO7. Wow, unprecedented there from Dusty Lusky, who was able to take advantage, and now look at Scornsy trying everything he can. Oh, big contact there, and Elma Jacko has spun it round towards the inside of the corner. And Scornsy, he's gone wide himself. So in the desperation of the Haas of Scornsy for trying to find it round the outside then of Elma Jacko has now picked up a 10-second time penalty, which I believe he'll have valid reason to get removed as he was just trying to get back onto the track safely. However, he's made contact then with the right front tire somehow of Majacko, which has resulted in both of them going round. And crucially, Majacko now dropping positions. And even more crucially than that, when Elma Jacko has to pit for that other set of tires, he's going to be dropping back significantly. Wow, and that was one that we did not expect. And it all started when Dusty Lusky overtake the both of them. What, quite frankly, a beautiful maneuver there from Dusty Lusky, but I'm just not sure how those two were caught so far off guard. Shariah Coleslaw, he is on his way in now, as Scornsy 5-second penalty speeding into the pit lane, and Scornsy has DNF'd from the session. Not the day that the Haas of Scornsy has wanted, who retires in the pits. Wow, that... I mean, it really has gone bad to worse then for that Haas team. So, that does relatively leave... Oh, as we've... Oh, who's that that's gone off? That is Smith Pell, who's had a bit of a spin there, as I believe Tweezer's on his way in. Now that does leave the two Aston Martins then, of both Lightwork and Ryan Rods, relatively uncontested for a 1-2 here. Unless perhaps another safety car comes out. It's very possible. But there's not a lot of time for it to happen. 9 laps to go. Now Elma Jacko, he's going to look to make up some positions here once more, as he's actually on his way into the pits. So Elma Jacko finally biting the bullet and coming in and choosing to stop, and that's going to drop him down, well, at least to 10th, maybe 11th. Soft tires going on then for the Ferrari. But look how far back he is, as it looks like Ryan Rods has just actually overtaken the Aston Martin then of Lightwork. He's gotten around his teammate somehow. Towards the back, it looks like someone's had a bit of an off then. Perhaps either Smith Pell or maybe Tweezer, but something's not gone correct back there. But, crucially, Ryan Rods now has the lead of the Grand Prix. And VTEC setting the fastest lap. But I mean, seriously, the amount of twists and turns that has taken place in this Grand Prix, absolutely unprecedented then. DRS open here for the Aston Martin of Lightwork. Will he be able to overtake his teammate? Yes, he does, and quite easily that as well. Here comes Dace down to the inside on Lancey, and that is done well. Now, crucially this. At this point in time, the AlphaTauri team, I would say, is beating out the Ferraris on total points gained today, considering the AlphaTauri is at 5th and 9th, considering as well Scavney is going to have penalties here, so A-Dub will be moved up to 8th. Majacko currently P11, his teammate of KB P4, so give or take, do the math, and you would probably see that the AlphaTauri team has had a better day than Ferrari, but only just. And the day's not quite over yet, now is it? As it looks like Ryan Rods and Lightwork switching positions once again. It's actually costing them quite some time. Dusty Lusky We're starting to catch up here. That gap now closing in within 2 seconds. It's Knuckles 3 seconds for multiple warnings. So as the two Aston Martins figure out which one of them wants to lead more, Dusty Lusky starting to invite himself into this battle for perhaps the win, if he can get there in time. I'm not quite sure. It doesn't much look like they will, as once again, the two Aston Martins will trade positions here. Light work now, retaking the lead of the Grand Prix. Looks like Mopower Cowboy might have a move here on Lancey, despite the DRS train that's being had here, which is preventing Mopower from having a significant chance to overtake Lancey then. But either way, he's kind of really closed in that gap to the Williams ahead of him. Can we just look and see who's got what penalties? So Scaveney's got 3 seconds. Mind you, actually, so interesting this. A-Dub has now fallen back to the Red Bull ahead of him, outside of 3 seconds. Oh! And Majacko goes around, and Shariah Coleslaw's gotten into it with him! And the day for El Majacko goes from bad to worse, as he actually comes out on track having gained a position somehow. Wow, this is so unprecedented here. Well, El Majacko was 11th, he's now 10th. Now back to 11th after the contact there with VTech. Wow, unbelievable turn of events then. For two drivers that really, I mean, I don't want to say had no business fighting each other, but like, it couldn't have been worth both spinning out then, going through Tamburello, that part's for sure. Mopower Cowboy, will he have a move here on Lancey? DRS open for the Alfa Romeo, although it doesn't quite look like he's going to have anything to be made here. No, it doesn't. He's actually... It does appear that even if you're within like 0.2 of a second of the driver ahead, you run out of time quite quickly in that pit straight, going towards Tamburello. But now does he have a move into Toza, perhaps? He's going to look down to the inside. Hard on the brakes is the Alfa Romeo. He doesn't have anything to be had then. He did have quite a look, and I tell you what, perhaps in the future that move could be made. Slayerized on his way into the pits. It looks like El Majacko has made his way around VTech then. Very interesting day this has been. In all ways, shapes, and forms. In Scornsy didn't finish. El Majacko's dropped down to 10th. I mean, really, this has been quite a very interesting Grand Prix. It all started with that sprint race. It was Ryan Rods. I tell you what, Ryan Rods nearly had himself an incident then. He's gotten quite a bit of oversteer coming out of the final of the Rivatsa corners of turn 18. That's nearly gone tremendously wrong. But here's Mopower Cowboy within slipstream here of Lancey ahead of him. DRS activated here. He's going to find his way around the right-hand side. Does he have the position? Mind you, Lancey also missing that right front end plate on the front wing of the Williams. Ooh, I tell you what, somehow Mopower has gotten away with that one. Nicely done then from the Alfa Romeo. I tell you what, I have been fairly critical of the Imola track, and I tell you what, we're finding ourselves having some great racing here. Scaveney's looking his way around the right-hand side of Lancey. Does he have the move to be made? No, he doesn't yet. It looks like perhaps he can have that move made within the next couple of laps, or perhaps right now, either one, as he makes that move going in towards Piratella. Nicely done then from the Red Bull driver. This still being the closest battle on track, minus whatever the Aston Martins have been doing at the top of the grid. These guys have been trading positions back and forth. Towards the back, it looks like Shariah on his way in. Full grid today, by the way, 20 drivers in total. Very nice. Great success. So, does Ryan Rods have a move here for light work? I don't want to say his teammate. Spared a couple times that we've seen Ryan Rods actually on track this season. Temporary teammate, I'd say. He's going to let his teammate have that one, but only temporarily. Lancey, does he perhaps have a move to Scaveney in front of him? Mind you, Scaveney's only really going to lose one position here as A-Dub's fallen back quite significantly. Look at the craning taking place of the rear tires then of the AlphaTauri. You can see, I think he's properly struggling then with that car and the tires that he is on. Only a couple laps to go. It'll be 3 once they get to the line this time by. Now, mind you, crazier things have happened, even this season in the Coleslaw Cup. We've had 2 repeats of the Abu Dhabi incident in the same season, within a couple weeks of each other. Once at Singapore, and then once at was it France? I think it must have been France. Yeah, I think it was. Oh, I can't remember. No, it wasn't France. It was Miami. Yeah, it was at Miami that happened. While once again, both the Aston Martins within a couple of tenths. A solid attempt for an overtake over his teammate, temporarily, of course, of Lightwork. He's going to have it around the right-hand side, perhaps. Yes, he does. Nicely done then from Ryan Rods. But Lightwork's still right there. He's still hungry. I am really hoping that these two don't somehow end in catastrophe and take each other out in some way, shape, or form. Good God, the amount of heart attacks I probably have regarding that. I think Lancey, you could really see, is has been struggling from the downforce loss that he's had on that right front side, considering the damage that he has. And not only downforce he's lost, but straight line speed as well. That front wing really does mean a lot for pace as well, which isn't often talked about. But straight line speed also impacted from wing damage. Never mind cornering ability. Shariah Coleslaw, 3-second time penalty, exceeding track limits then. Looks like Dusty Lusky has not been able to close his way in to the battle for the win in front of him. However, has had himself a pretty good day, has found his way up into the podium places after mind you, the beautiful double overtake he had coming off the virtual safety car. DRS open here for Lightwork. He's actually being overtaken by, I believe, Shariah Coleslaw, who's actually gotten around him then. Shariah Coleslaw, not exactly battling for the lead, but I tell you what, he's at least playing a good little sideshow here, perhaps, it seems. It looks like Dace and KB, wow, wheel to wheel then, and they have now gone around as Dace. Wow, and just when you thought, and I tell you what, this is not the first time that I've said this as well, just when you thought AlphaTauri were going to have themselves a day better than Ferrari, it's gone completely the opposite way, and Dace gets in an incident there with KBO7, drops down to 8th. Wow, that one, I'm afraid, might get looked at in the steward reports later on. As, wow, that was just an absolutely unprecedented incident then, and I wasn't even, like, looking out for them in the battle. I was just looking and messing around, trying to find something to go on about, and I suddenly saw that. Absolutely unprecedented here. GSR Ryan Rod's finding his way through the Rivazza corners now for the penultimate time, as he will now be starting the final lap of this very intriguing, very long, but mostly intriguing. What is this? It's not well, it is San Marino, but it is Imola. Lightwork's going to find his way. Let's say Italian Grand Prix, but it's not that either, is it? Anyways, well, Lightwork does have the lead here. Ryan Rod's got overtaken then on the pit straight. I don't necessarily believe. I mean, I tell you what, I'm actually lost for words. Meanwhile, it looks like Knuckles and Slayer Eyes might be in a battle here as they make their way through Piratella. Lancey's just picked up 3 seconds for multiple warnings, so that puts him even Stevens in with Scavney, and that'll actually drop him below Dace as well. So not exactly what he needed, but it is what it is. A little battle here between Knuckles and Slayer Eyes. It doesn't look like that position's going to change. We've just had a yellow flag. Oh no, GSR Ryan Rods, as something has happened with him, as he has slid massively out of the way, is now 3 seconds behind his teammate of NFS Lightwork, who, by the way, coming out of Rivazza corner now, turn 18, has done an excellent job all day today, and he will win the Sprint Race Weekend Grand Prix and round number 9 here of the Coleslaw Cup. His temporary teammate, GSR Ryan Rod, spinning and second placing. As well as Dusty Lusky and KBO7's doing that as well. Mopal Cowboy comes across 5th, Scavney 6th, Lancey then being overtaken by Dace, who, mind you, Lancey did have the time penalty. Lancey ends up 8th. A-Dub, I believe, will be coming across to P9 here. VTech taking 10th. Elva Jacko down to 11th. But crucially that, Ferrari have had themselves a better day than AlphaTauri, I'd say. And Scornsy hasn't had a point-scoring day at all, so El Majacco will lengthen his gap at the top of the table. So after it's all said and done here at the Sprint Grand Prix weekend, it is, after all, NFS Lightwork in first, Ryan Rods in second, it's an Aston Martin 1 and 2, Dusty Lusky third, KVO 7 fourth, Mo Power Cowboy 5th, Scavney 6th, Day 7th, 8th is Lancey, 9th A-Dub, 10th VTech, 11th is Jacko, 12th Nicky 64, 13th Slayer Rice, 14th Knuckles, 15th Shariah, and then rounding out the field, Tweezer, 16th, 17th Swiftfell, 18th Scornsy, 19th Ray Ray, rounding out the field P20, TDB Dutchman. So, if you thought that was any madness, guess what? Next week we go to Monaco, and it's at midnight. Hotspot, thank you very much for joining us this week for the Coleslaw Cup. We will see you next week in the streets of Monaco for round number 10 of the Coleslaw Cup.